Tailgate. Here we go. It is Sunday, July 12th as we record this show. We are officially within 50 days of college football season kicking off. I'm Dan Watkins. With me, as always, is John McKechnie. John, 4th of July is in the rearview mirror now, right? Media days are starting around the country. I'm starting to get that football itch, man. I don't want to wish summer away because I love summer so much. But at the same time, man, I'm a Red Sox fan. And while they are hot right now, I'm losing my interest in base. I'm at that point, right, with the All-Star break coming up. I'm losing my baseball interest. I'm ready to fully dive into some football here. But how are you, buddy? It's been a minute since we've talked.
I know things are good here at the compound here in Atlanta. Baby's doing good, but yeah, I'm feeling ready for college football to be back. I mean, we're starting to see big news in the college football world this week with Yahoo bringing back their college football game. Underdog also has college football best ball, so I've been dipping my toes in that. I was talking to a buddy yesterday at this Scott Fish Bowl thing who's big in the college game. He's like, yeah, I got 40 slow drafts cooking right now. I'm like, you're an animal. I absolutely love it. So that sort of gave me I got to catch up. So that just sort of was a reminder to me that it's almost go time here. We're just a few weeks out from fall camps and media days are here. So man, it's about that time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Big 12 has already had their media days. They got it over and done with, and we're not even technically at the midway point of July yet, and we've already got a major conference with their media days in the books, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Big 12. We're not going to fully dive into the conference or anything like that and do previews. We are going to do our preview shows later on throughout the summer here, so stay tuned for those. But we are going to talk about the Big 12, what's going on with Texas Tech, as they are just the boogeyman, kind of lurking over the rest of the conference, and it really does feel like it's 15 against 1 right now with what's going on. But at the same time, that 1 is the conference's golden ticket, to anything right now. So it's a really interesting dynamic that's going on in the Big 12, which is just going to be a chaotic conference as always. We will talk about that. I want to talk a little storylines, guys. That's what are you excited about this college football season as we head into it and we get close to fall camps and season kicking off? What are you really looking forward to? What intrigues you? And I want to pick John's brain. I got some thoughts here as well. We're going to try to predict what the AP is going to do, which can always be, a bit of a chore, but I don't know. Predicting what the AP does, I think, might be a little easier than what the committee does later on in the season, as we have learned here throughout the past couple of years. So we're going to do that. We're going to give our top 5 wide receivers during this show, heading into 2026, heading into this season. I think it's pretty obvious who's going to be number 1 on both of our lists, but we'll see. I don't know. There's that guy at Ohio State that is, I don't know, might use the word generational, maybe. I don't know. But hey, and then I want to also take a look at the early part of the schedule too, and just some under the radar games that I think will have some big time ramifications later on down the road. So that's what we got planned for you guys here this week. We are back. We're getting in the swing of things here. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are College Football Tailgate. Hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on podcast, thank you very much. College Football Tailgate, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, like we said, and you can follow us on Twitter at CFB Tailgate 25, and we are also on TikTok at CFB Tailgate. So, and then one other thing too, tell a friend, right? College football season's coming. You want to be informed. You want to know what's going on, and maybe as you're starting to place those future bets, if you haven't yet, or if you're starting to look at the week 0 lines, those are up everywhere. A lot of the week 1 lines are up too. Give us a follow. Check out the show. Tell some friends. So that's what we're planning on doing here this season as we start to get fully into the swing of things. All right, John, favorite storylines. I'm going to let you start. What are you looking forward to the most? What really piques your interest heading into the 2026 season? What do you got?
Well, even with the Sorsby thing being put to bed, I still think the Texas Tech is a fascinating storyline for this year. They sort of crashed the party last year. They were able to sort of flex their bankroll and turn it into a playoff appearance with a bye, top 4 seed type of season from them. They have this lightning rod chaotic offseason where they bring in Sorsby, they win the bidding war for Sorsby over LSU and some other big programs. Obviously that doesn't work out. How do they pick up the pieces, right? Because not only are they kind of starting pseudo from scratch as far as their quarterback goes? I think that there's some optimism about Hammond being ready to go. Week one, he looked all right when he was out there last year. I think better than Morton at certain points. But that defense is going to be worse, right? I mean, Height and Bailey and Rodriguez, like the list goes on. That defense, like I think that there was reason to believe that Texas Tech could be like another shoe-in for a playoff berth, just because their offense was going to kind of make up for the losses on defense. Now the offense is a little bit more of a question mark. The defense, again, with all those losses, big time ones, we'll see how they're able to bounce back. So I think for me, Texas Tech is still kind of like that fascinating program who, I think is going to be a lightning rod throughout the season. They're going to be the big draw of the Big 12, if nothing else. I'm very excited to see, how they're able to deal with success.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the Big 12 hasn't had a repeat champ, I think, since like 2021, 22, something like that. It was when Oklahoma was just kind of like rattling off, a bunch there. But other than that, it's really been like that parity conference where we see a different champion and someone else emerge every single season. So that's really interesting. We'll take a little bit of a look at the odds boards there coming up when we kind of like dip into like some of that more of that Big 12 stuff. But like it really seems like even without Sorsby, like the odds makers are saying, yeah, this is clearly far and away the team to beat in this conference. And like I love their backfield, right? With Dickey, and like they got a two-headed monster. They have both those guys almost had 2,000 yards last season, which is just
and
nuts.
That's while losing who was supposed to be the starter from that backfield during fall camp. So he's back. So they've got three guys that they're going to be able to punish people on the ground. Can they replace Taj Brooks from a couple of years ago in the aggregate? In terms of just sheer weight and body mass, I think they're pretty close to being combined about as big as Taj Brooks was.
Yeah, and as you mentioned too, Joey McGuire said this week, like it's starting to look like Will Hammond's going to be ready to go week one at the start of the season. I think they open up with Abilene Christian to start things off. So I guess if Hammond misses that game, he misses that one. But then week two, interesting spot. They go up to Corvallis to play Oregon State. Now, Oregon State's down a little bit from what they've been in years past, but that's never an easy trip. And I think if they can have Hammond there and get him some reps, get real game reps, and get him going before that Houston matchup in week three, I think that will go a long way for Texas Tech.
No doubt about it. Let's see. I mean, do you want to alternate storylines, or can I keep rocking through my list?
Keep going. What do you got? What do you got? Let's see if we got some similar ones here, and then we can kind of just cross them off.
I feel like there is a bit of an SEC identity crisis going on right now, where the Big Ten is loud and proud out there. They've won the last 3 national championships, and it's just been a minute. I don't think, hasn't a SEC program played in a national championship in that span? I don't believe so. So, they're sort of at this weird spot, and it doesn't feel like there's an obvious, like these guys are going to be right back in it. Like, it feels like it's all quiet on the Southern front when it comes to Georgia and Alabama, like the teams that you used to always be able to kind of pencil in as, not only teams that are going to make the playoff, but make some noise within the playoff. LSU obviously is going to be interesting for their own reasons with Lane Kiffin, and LSU just kind of always interesting. But, it does feel like they are a little bit behind, the top of the other power conferences as far as like who their best teams are. Like I still think that the SEC is about as deep as any conference out there, but is their top as good as the Big Ten? Is it as good as even the ACCs with how good Miami is? I'm a little bit dubious on it. So I think the SEC's got a little bit of soul searching that they've, obviously been doing throughout the course of this offseason. But I think it's going to continue to be a talking point if they don't get that, monkey off their back basically and get back to the mountaintop this year. I think people are going to be like, yeah, it's open and shut. Like the SEC is no longer like the power conference anymore in football. And maybe some people are already saying that, of course, but I think 4 years, it's definitely like the alarm bells are sounding for the SEC because it's so ingrained in the identity of the South and everything. And it's what they were, beating their chest about for the better part of this entire century, basically until these last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I have my 2026 Athlon Sports preview mag right now for those of you watching, and as you can see, right there inside, what's wrong with the SEC is on the cover there. I think Dennis Dodd did a nice write up of what's going on there, but a lot of the points that you were just hitting on, and I think it really comes back to though that like the SEC's depth is like holding them back in like a reverse kind of way, where it's like they're beating the crap out of each other every single week, that like you don't have that team emerge. Like there is no strong team emerging at the end, where like the big boys in the Big Ten still are able to like go and kick the snot out of a bunch of teams here, where they're standing and they're in just a much better shape physically, come late November, early December than the SEC, where it's just this war of attrition, that like just trying to get through this gauntlet of a schedule. And now you're going to a 9th conference game too on top of that. Like it's really interesting to see. And you know what, actually, I'm just going to kind of piggyback this off of one of my big storylines for the season that I'm really looking forward to. And I kind of have a feeling that you're looking forward to this too, maybe in a little bit of a different way than I am. But is Texas poised to be this buzzsaw, right, that we're expecting? Like going into 2025, a year ago, like we heard, like this time last year, right, mid to late July, we start hearing about, oh, here comes Texas, right? They're handing it to Arch. It's his time. This team is going to be like one of the best college football teams we've ever seen, right? We had Paul Feinbaum talking about how Arch Manning was going to be like the best Heisman winner we've had since Tebow 15 years ago or whatever it was. And then they kind of just, well, they lose to Ohio State week 1. They lose to Florida in there as well. But it's like, so it's really this like, stop me if you've heard this before, right? Are we for real this time? Like, is Texas poised to be this juggernaut that we're all expecting? And like this offseason, they opened the war chest, guys. If you have not, like, if it's been a minute since you've looked at what Texas did in the portal, like go take a look. They bring in a couple of stud running backs. They bring in Cam Coleman at wide receiver to pair him with Wingo on the outside. The offensive line, they kind of revamped and retooled and added a bunch of depth to that they desperately needed. They bring in some key pieces on defense too, especially in that linebacker room. Will Muschamp is back as defensive coordinator, which is very interesting too. So like, I can't wait to see what Texas is going to do. That week 2 game against Ohio State is in Austin this year. Can't wait for that one. So like Texas, right? It's like it's nut up or shut up at this point, and show me what you got. And like if this goes wrong, and like if Texas is on the outside looking in and they're 9-3 again, like Sark might not be the head coach in 2027.
No, I don't think so. I think anything less than not just a playoff berth, but a pretty sizable playoff run, I think is going to get Sarkisian out of there, because yeah, there's no excuses. I think, a lot of last summer we spent pushing back against the tsunami of Texas hype, because it was like, okay, Arch played a little bit last year while Ewers was hurt, and he, what are we hanging our hat on exactly? Like the fact that he like looked good against Miss State and a couple other like piddly non-con games, like. How sure are we that Arch is good? Plus, they had lost a lot from their defense the year prior. Their backfield was a question going into last year. So I had my Brian Windhorst fingers up about Texas last year. And we were right to an extent. I mean, were they playing some of the best ball of any team towards the end of the season? I would say yes. But I think by that same token, they undid themselves with the kind of inexcusable loss to Florida. They got kind of bullied by Georgia, I thought. Of course, I think that. And then, of course, the Ohio State game. This year, begrudgingly, I'm willing to buy the hype. I am willing to buy the hype on Texas this year. I think Arch had those growing pains that we were expecting, but I think he moved past them. I think the addition of Cam Coleman is colossal. I think having a stable run game for them is going to be really big. I love Hollywood Smothers. Raleek Brown, also a good running back that they got from Arizona State. One of our listeners who I talk ball with a lot, Mateo, always kind of has his finger up about teams that are too reliant on portal for the offensive line. So we'll see, how that's able to mesh there in Austin. But the talent plus the experience there, I think, is enough for me to believe that Texas is going to be a bit of a wagon this year. And I think that defense, they were so physical back in 2020, 24. And last year they were just kind of soft and like I don't know what exactly happened to them on the defensive side of the ball, but it should be a lot better this year. Muschamp is a very no nonsense type of guy. He knows how to operate there in Austin, so I think the defense will be better as well. So whereas last year I thought the hype was largely unwarranted, at least for the reasons that people were saying, I think this year I can understand it, and I think I'm with it.
Yeah, it's really like if not now, when? Like everything is in Texas's favor for this season, right? And like the spitting match that we've had between Sark and Joey McGuire, spot the ball, and all that kind of stuff, has just kind of added to just like, okay, I can't wait to see what this Texas team is going to do. Like, are they going to be appointment TV like every single week? Kind of like it's almost with the amount of talent, John, that they have, like I'm wondering if we're going to kind of get into that like 2019 LSU territory with this team, like where it's just like, okay, like are we going to? And ironically, that LSU team opened up at Texas where they just like dropped a 50 burger. I think, or maybe it was 45, but
That
still.
was like one of the few times that LSU even had to sweat that year, but we didn't even know that LSU was going to do that at that point. They were, yeah, LSU was kind of mid that first year with Burrow, and then they just completely exploded into being like the best team that I can really remember in 2019. But yeah, this Texas team, it's got the ingredients. They've got to clean up the drops too. I mean, I think having Cam Coleman will help, but like Wingo needs to get his head screwed on right. I like Emmett Mosley a lot as well. So again, tons of pieces there. They just need to put it together. But I'm willing to say that the Texas is deserving of the hype that they're getting this time around.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, too, the like most important thing, Arch Manning is the reigning Cheez-It Bowl MVP going into this season, which is huge. I mean, he is King Cheese going into this one. So, and credit to you, John, as well. Like you did kind of point out, I feel like as we were like recapping that Georgia-Texas game that like it kind of started to look like something in the second half of that game started to click with Arch, where you were like, oh, okay, this might start to be a thing here. And it played out the rest of the season that way, and that's kind of the hype that we have going in to 2026 too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think by the time that we got to their game against Texas A&M, it was like, that was one of my favorite bets that week. I felt really good about UT in that spot, and I felt kind of almost equally like things are going to come back to earth a little bit for A&M here. They had kind of like gotten by the skin of their teeth in a couple of spots, like in the few weeks prior to that game. But yeah, Texas ending the year strong and bringing so much of it back and kind of improving upon the spots that they weren't bringing back. I think all of that, they've made all the right moves. But to quote Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, like with great power comes great responsibility. Like they have to get this done. Like there's no margin for error for this Texas team. Not in the sense that like they can't lose a game or two this year. That they'll be fine. They can still get into the playoff that way if they're 10-2, 11-1. But I'm saying that level of expectation is so high where it's sort of, if you're not in the championship, it does ring as a disappointing season if you're Texas.
Absolutely. And I think Texas is one of like maybe, I don't know, 4 to 6 teams in the country, I think, that have that same feeling going into 2026 where it's championship or at least be in that game or bust. And we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. But I know you have one more storyline, but I want to do one more and just stay in the SEC here because I have another SEC one. And we've kind of started to hint at it a little bit. But like how like even like I feel like even if you're not like a huge college football fan, like Lane Kiffin at LSU is like something that you're looking forward to this season, right? After all that drama with everything, like, is he going to leave? And he leaves. He leaves the team before the playoffs, right? And he's out at Ole Miss. He brings a bunch of guys from Ole Miss with him, including Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator. Gets some guys from the transfer portal as well, right? We had all those stakeouts and everything. What's Lane going to do? And he ends up going to Louisiana State University, where he was handed $40 million basically to spend on this roster for this season between the portal, roster retention, recruiting as well, right? Everything he has done to try to reshape this team on the fly. What's this going to look like this season? I cannot wait to see what LSU is going to look like here as we get into the Lane Kiffin era. He brings in Sam Levitt at quarterback, who I have said on this show that I think he might be the best quarterback in the country this season. We'll see what happens there as long as he's healthy. Lane brings in a bunch of other impact players as well, including reshaping and retooling that wide receiver room completely. The coordinator duo is one of, if not the best in the country, with Charlie Weiss Jr. Heading up the offense, and then Blake Baker on defense. Kiffin got him to stay, which I think is a sneaky big retention there as well. But this schedule, especially in September, John, is tough. Like before October 1st, this team will have played both Clemson and Texas A&M at home, and they will have gone to Oxford to play Ole Miss, I think week 3, which is going to be probably the most toxic environment of the entire season. Cannot wait for that game. I believe it's already Saturday night, ABC. Kirk and Chris Fowler, I'm sure will be on the call of that one. Like the Grove is going to be a scene and a half. And then
the amount of fights that are going to be happening in like like the old saying, like this town ain't big enough for the both of us. Like that's really true in Oxford. Like it is not a large place. Like it is going to be so overpacked there,
right?
And that sweet little town in northern Mississippi. It's good Lord. The Grove is going to be a madhouse. I mean, it was a madhouse when I was there for the Georgia game a couple years ago, which was a big spot in November. But this is like even another level from that. And knowing what I know from my personal experience with both LSU and Ole Miss fans, a lot of hands are going to be thrown. That you're already sending your best wishes to the people working security on campus that weekend, because it's going to be a handful.
Yeah, absolutely. And normally teams, and you see this right in the post-game handshakes and stuff like that, like there's 1 to 2 state troopers, right, with the team that travels with them across state lines, because like normally the football coach is like the highest paid public employee in the state. Like Lane might have like half the department with him. He might need like half of like an entire like branch of the Louisiana State Police with him in Mississippi that weekend. Like they might have like a full like presidential Air Force One, the tank escort to get Kiffin into the Grove.
Yeah, they put him in the Pope Mobile, and like
right.
And at the end of the game, like you'll be looking at the field, and like 2 guys in like white ghillie suits were just lying down on the sideline, and they just pop up to like help cool down the scene or something. Like it's gonna be
I can't wait. But it brings me back, though, to my main point, though, too. On the field with this LSU team, like, there's no excuse for this team to not be in the playoff and to make a bit of a run, too. Like, I'm not fully, like, going, like, it's got to be national. They need to be in the national title game this year in year 1 with Kiffin. That's not what the expectation I should be, at least I feel. And I want to make sure I'm consistent with this. LSU should be in the playoff, though, this season. Like, and they should win a playoff game and then see what happens. Like, I expect this team to like be in like at least the second round of the college football playoff this season.
Yeah, I think that's your base case. When you have a $40 million roster, you don't really have that. Oh, it's your first year. Like that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, and again, something that we've come back to time and again, like Sig has completely blown that concept out of the water. And
sure.
Like if Sig can do it in year 1 at Indiana, brother Lane, you got no excuse but to be like a top 8 seed in the CFP come December.
Absolutely. Yep. So completely agree with that. What else you got? Storylines. What else are you looking forward to?
I'm just excited to see how much staying power Miami has. I'm convinced that they do have it. I think.
Sure.
But when we get to national championship picks discussion, I think I may have some mention of them. I love their odds right now. Just for the record, y'all, it's like 12-1. But yeah, can they keep this going? Like, they're sort of like Texas Tech in the sense that like they lose so much off of their defense that really was the jet fuel for them making it as far as they did a year ago. So how do they, reconfigure on that side of the ball? But I think offensively, not to say that like Carson Beck was a restrictor plate last year, but except in the games where they lost and he cost them in each of those. Mensa, I think, is like the real deal. So
that's your guy. You've been on him for like over a year now.
Since he was at Tulane, man, I'm like, this guy is sick. So him, you bring down Cooper Barcade, who is his kind of security blanket at Duke. Like him, then plus Tony, plus I mean the way that Mark Fletcher kind of broke out in the
Yeah.
playoffs, it's like, man, that's a really serious group. You know that Cristobal is going to have a great offensive line, so like this Miami team, like it's a storyline. Like, is the U fully back? This is the year that they can actually prove it, I think, and I would say that they've made the moves to set themselves up for prolonged success here.
Yeah, my big question with them is how do you replace those defensive ends with Mesidor and Bain now gone, and some other pieces on defense too, and even the offensive line too with Maui Agoa's gone and Markel Bell, the two tackles too. But like, it does bring back, as you were just hinting at, right? Mario's a phenomenal recruiter, and if there's any area where he deserves the benefit of the doubt, it's in the trenches, and then
100%.
he's gonna figure that out. Now they might not have that elite production that they had a year ago, right? You lose 2 first-round picks, right, off your defensive line. Like, there's going to be a little bit of a growing pain there. But, yeah, I do think Miami is poised to make a run through the ACC and actually win the ACC this year. Don't forget, people, they didn't even play in the ACC championship game a year ago, where I do think we have the ACC has reconfigured some rules there to make sure that there's a playoff tie as well. So I'm sure we will be talking about that as we go forth. Because John, 2025, just I feel like it did a number on people in so many different ways in college football. Like, what happened in the month of November? I think just really it screwed with some people's brains, and we are in this just weird place now because of it.
When we were sitting there, first weekend of December, championship Saturday, and you got the heavyweight bout of Indiana versus Ohio State going on, and then it's oh, it's that commercial. I can check in on Duke, Virginia.
Yeah,
this is,
and that was actually, didn't they go to overtime? I think that was actually it was better. Yeah, it was actually a really good game to flip over to after Ohio State and Indiana ended.
But it's just how can this possibly matter? How is this neither of these teams are going to make the playoff? This is so bizarre. And then of course you kind of have the lingering soap opera that was what is the committee going to do with Miami and all this stuff? Are they going to move them up and get them into the playoff? It was just such a bizarre little end sequence. The ACC was very strange last year.
It was, and and that actually perfectly takes me into my number one storyline of the season. And I want it known, right? I've waited 27 plus minutes into the show to bring this up. Okay? But my number one storyline going into 2026 is the Notre Dame revenge tour, right? After all the complaining that the Irish did, whether you think they were justified to or not, you got the AD making the rounds on every single big time national talk show saying that Notre Dame got jobbed, and we called it on this show that it was coming. The trap door was going to be pulled out, and it was. The rug was pulled out from Notre Dame at the last minute, where they put Miami ahead of them, even though Miami should have been ahead of them all along, because head-to-head should be the most important piece of criteria. That's why you play the game, and I say that as a Notre Dame fan. But back to 2026 here, right? You bring back 15 returning starters. Marcus Freeman is back. It's a fat new contract and paycheck, right? They go into spring ball with the sign that is up saying, "Leave no doubt." And that's what Notre Dame really has to do, because once again, you look at this season and how it shapes up, it really comes down to 2 to 3 big games here on this schedule, right? At BYU in the middle of October, you get Miami in South Bend in November, and then depending on how you feel about SMU and how they're playing, you get them towards the end of the year as well. But it's national title or bust here for the Irish, for Marcus Freeman and this team. How do they respond to everything that happened, John? I think they're deeper than ever. You lose 2 stud running backs, 2 first-round running backs, and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. But I think Notre Dame can backfill that. I really do like Aeneas Williams if he's healthy. He was ripping off 8 yards per carry last year when he was in as well. They have potentially the best wide receiver room they've had under Freeman too, which I think is going to be great. CJ Carr is some people's Heisman pick. He looked really good down the stretch last year. So I mean, then you got in Notre Dame saying no, we're taking our ball and going home, not playing in a bowl game either, right? You got all these different aspects where it's just really leave no doubt is really what this team needs to be saying to themselves every single week, and they need to be that kind of buzzsaw going through here, because people are going to be out with their pitchforks when it comes to Notre Dame. I feel more so than they typically are if this team has any sort of a hiccup down the stretch with this schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you're lifelong Notre Dame fan, so like it better than anybody. The pitchfork, dynamic.
Who have they played?
See,
Yeah.
So like you get that, and then like in years past, like you have like the Freeman slip up games like against Marshall or NIU, and then last year you just start with like this total like gauntlet through the first 3 weeks of the season, having played Miami and Texas A&M both, and starting the way that they did, but then finishing the way they did, where sort of like I was saying about Texas, like were they playing some of the best like top 12 level team football towards the end of the season? Absolutely they were, but you know what? It was that fatal wound that was given to them in September. Finally made them bleed out by the time that the selection committee was making their final bracket for the CFP. So this year it looks different. I mean, like I think we have reason to believe that Carr is the real deal, but I think it's at least like an open question, like. How much was he playing on easy mode because the defenses were terrified of Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price? Like, I think it's a fair question now. I do think the Carr is good enough to operate without like those guys. I think it certainly helped him as a first-year starter last year, but he's ready to go. I think this is his team now, and like you said, there's a lot of talent in this receiver room. I love Jordan Faison. Greathouse, I think, is a nice gritty player as well. I know that they've added some other guys there, Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter.
Yeah, the two guys from Ohio State.
Yeah, so like there's and a guy with the most Notre Dame tight end name possible, Cooper Flanagan. Like, yeah, man, like this is setting up pretty nicely. The defense is going to be looking good because Freeman, has his fingerprints on that side of the ball. I know that things were a little bit shaky to start last year on the defensive side of the ball, but things I think got dialed in pretty nicely last year. Who's the cornerback that's insanely
Leonard
good?
Moore.
Yeah. So yeah,
he's supposed to be a top 10 pick.
Probably like the Thorpe Award favorite type of guy. There's a lot of reason to believe in this Notre Dame team. It's just like you said, you have to leave no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me, the spotlight, like the magnifying glass, and I don't think I'm alone in saying this. I think this is how a lot of Irish fans feel, is like Chris Ash is going to be the first one to be grilled on if something goes wrong here this season. Like he was like, people were ready to run him out of town in September a year ago, but they did rebound very nicely. Now you look at some of the offenses that they played compared to those first 2 weeks, but still, like I think they went down the stretch like allowing just like 9 points per game or something like that in the second half of the year. And still, like in college football in 2025, no matter who you're playing, if you're holding your opponent's a collective under 10 points per game, like you're doing something right there. So you return 8 starters to that defense, including Leonard Moore, who's supposed to be a top 10 pick at cornerback. Like this team, everything is set up for Notre Dame here, and I can't wait. That Miami Notre Dame game in November is going to be cinematic, I feel like, in South Bend. That's going to be awesome.
I love that you guys get that at home in November too. It's like a nice little bonus having that home field when the elements actually matter against a team where like that is a factor.
It worked out perfect. Notre Dame had to go play in Miami in August.
Yeah.
Last year. So why not make Miami come up to Indiana in November? I think that works out nicely.
It's sort of like like when Bills and Dolphins. Like it's always like grain of salt if they play in the other teams, like what worst elements, like if the Bills have to go down to Miami in September, or if the Dolphins have to go up in December, it's like that game's over before it even starts. So yeah, I love that the justice and the balance of that.
Yeah, like it always bugs me when the Patriots like would have to go, or like when the Miami game in Foxborough would be in September. It's like that's no fun. Like
we're not getting the edge.
Yeah, come on, exactly. All right, moving on. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as I mentioned earlier there. It just helps us out as we continue to try to grow the show, College Football Tailgate. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify for the podcast version as well. And one other thing, like the video, too. That does help drive traffic. So if you could do that and be so kind, that would really help. All right, so Big 12 Media Days are in the books here, and we're going to do our full conference preview coming up here over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for those. We'll break them probably into two parts again like we did last year, I would think. But anyways, John, we were kind of talking about at the beginning of the show. You're talking about how one of your favorite storylines is Texas Tech and what are they going to do this season. But like you listen to like some of the stuff at the Big 12 media days and like everything that's going on with the Brendan Sorsby situation, right? It feels like the entire conference is lined up against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech, like at the same time, is like the Big 12's best shot to like do anything in the playoffs and like really like stake their claim to like we're just as good as some of the as the other power conferences, where it feels like the Big 12 is still looked at differently compared to the other three big time conferences, even the ACC. And I like the ACC, and we can debate that or save that for another time. But like everybody kind of like looks at like the Big 12 as like the little brother of it when it comes to the Power Four here, and like they need Texas Tech, but at the same time they want to like shame Texas Tech. So there's a lot going on there. But what I want to ask you is, with no Brendan Sorsby, should Texas Tech still be so heavily favored to win this conference, right? Depending on the book that you shop at and you place your bets at, right? Like DraftKings, I think they have them at minus 105 to win the Big 12. FanDuel, it's like plus 105, so it's right there at just about even money. And then you got a pretty big drop off where you got BYU coming in at like 6-1, Utah's in there as well in like that 7-8-1 range, and then it's an even bigger drop off where I think Kansas State's fourth and they're over 10-1. So like, should Texas Tech, with the question mark at quarterback, should they still be so heavily favored to win?
I think it's fascinating that the books didn't really budge that much. I think that tells you a lot. I think it tells you that the overall structure of this team around the quarterback was so strong that Sorsby moves the needle, but maybe not as much as we thought. At least according to the odds makers, and the odds makers are smarter than me, smarter than most people. So it's a little bit of sticker shock seeing them still, like the gap still be that wide between them and BYU at 6-1, something like that. So it's shocking in that sense, but you think about it a little bit more, and like you understand that the odds makers have everything dialed in so much. Do I still love Texas Tech as a bet at even money for a future? No, and I'll probably talk myself into one of these next teams that we talk about as my ticket for the Big 12. But it makes sense that they are kind of like head and shoulders above the rest of the conference, and that's reflected in the odds right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, this roster's loaded like everywhere on the field, and like we watched this team last year be incredible in the regular season, and they didn't exactly have like elite quarterback play with Baron Morton by any means. I mean, he was just really good at not turning the ball over. And we saw Will Hammond a little bit last year. We're definitely going to see a lot more of him this season. They're going to have time to figure out what's going on with the quarterback there. And then the other thing too, and why I think the odds are the way that they are, right? Look at their schedule, guys. Go take a look, okay? And Texas Tech, what you'll notice is the next three teams on the odds boards to win the Big 12, BYU, Utah, and Kansas State, are not on the Red Raiders schedule for the regular season. So like this team should be in Arlington. They should be in Jerry World when it comes to championship weekend. I think that's why the odds are so drastic in the way that they are when it comes to Texas Tech.
Yeah, what a lucky draw. And then, they famously don't really schedule much in the way of, even despite what McGuire says when he knows that there's no repercussions. It's not like Texas Tech has a non-con gauntlet by any means. So yeah, getting to duck the class of the rest of the conference, I think is massive. And that's sort of like what we were talking about earlier with like the SEC, like it just, the schedules can't work out that way. Whereas like the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is so big, it can I think we could say fairly honestly, like that's kind of how Indiana got to the playoff the first year, where like their only hard game was against Ohio State. Like you can have those types of draws, and it's crazy that in a conference like the Big 12, the Texas Tech really also gets like the favorite child treatment as far as who they have to play.
Yeah, where else are you looking when it comes to this conference? Because like I'm interested in BYU, like a BYU ticket, just because this team's been really good the past couple of years, and like I've kind of changed my tune with them. I don't know if I've just been like beaten by the Mormons and what's going on in the comment sections and all that, but 23-4 over the past couple of seasons. Kalani Sitake gets the bag handed to him by BYU to stay there and not go to Penn State. You get a full spring for Bear Bachmeier as he goes into his true sophomore season. I'd be really interested to see how he backs up and lives up to expectations now after a really good freshman campaign. LJ Martin's back in that backfield. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there for the Cougars. I will mention, though, we're going to find out pretty quick because week 2 against Arizona, I think, is a sneaky big game there for them. Like a nice measuring stick game where it's the rematch of that overtime thriller from a year ago that BYU had to kind of pull out of thin air, right, where they won 33-27 down in Tucson. You get that game in Provo this year. So, I'm really interested to see what BYU looks like. Were they, how are they going to perform against some of the bigger competition here? That Notre Dame game's huge coming up in November, or October, excuse me. But when we saw this team last year, right, when they went up against Texas Tech, they couldn't really move the ball. So I'm interested to see how they look against some of the bigger opponents on their schedule.
The physicality of the backfield tandem is going to be among the best in college football. Bear Bachmeier is a robust 230 on a 6'2" frame. He's hard to tackle.
He's a bear.
He wears number 47. He looks like a fullback out there. Plays like it a little bit too. Him having a full, and he also threw for 3,000 yards last year. So as a true freshman, so he's really interesting. I think if we talk about maybe some Heisman dark horses, if BYU is 12-0 or 11-1, Bachmeier's I think going to be a big reason why, and LJ Martin, one of the best running backs in college football as well. So that all sets up really nicely. I definitely agree with BYU being second in the odds in the Big 12, and I think that's a reasonable ticket, especially considering you look at the same tier. Utah, I don't think is a good bet this year. I mean, I just think losing Whittingham is that.
I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about them? Where are we at with the Damp Boys? Right? Or are we going Bird Boys this year, right? We know that whether it's Dampier or Bird Franklin at quarterback, first year for Morgan Scalley as the head coach. I'm really fascinated to see if that identity of Utah sticks around with him now that Whittingham has left and gone to Ann Arbor.
I don't want to say that the Damp Boys are going away, but we're certainly kind of collecting ourselves. But before the season, we got to think some things through before we redeploy or rebrand ourselves. But I'm a little bit dubious on Utah, especially at that price.
A lot of new. There's a lot of new. I think just when Dampier's under center, I think he's the only returning starter on that offense.
That's bananas. So I mean that I think could be a big problem for Utah, and those 50-50 games that you always kind of knew that they were going to be the one to trust in those spots. I think that it's a much more open question now. You don't really have that benefit of the doubt that you used to in the Witt days, that they would just find a way to win, scratch those out. So I think that the two kind of interesting downboard types of teams that I'm looking at this year from the Big 12, Houston and OK State. So I'll try to go quick here, but Houston getting Connor Weigman back. I know that he flamed out at A&M for what he was supposed to be, but he kind of rejuvenated himself, I thought, in a pretty big way last year at Houston. Super reliant on Tanner Koziel, the tight end, but a sort of forgotten storyline among that was that Amari Thomas kind of established himself as one of the sneaky better receivers in college football young into his career. So he's going to be a game changer in year 2 there for Houston. And I love this tight end that they replaced Koziel with. Patrick Overmeyer. I actually watched the UTSA bowl game, I think at the in-laws, after everyone had gone to bed. Yeah. And I'm like, this guy looks like he can play on Sundays. I loved the fit of him going to Houston. Houston loves to use the tight end. He can be a guy that can really kind of carry an offense or carry a passing game too. So an experienced Weigman plus Amari Thomas plus Patrick Overmeyer plus you get Mekhi Hughes, who everyone was really high on last year when he transferred to Oregon. That's a nice core of your offense. I love Willie Fritz as a head coach too. So all of that combined, 17-1. I definitely don't hate that when it comes to Houston.
That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, don't sleep on Willie Fritz. And then you were kind of hinting at Oklahoma State too, which I'm also fascinated by. Right, with everything Morris is bringing, he's bringing the entire North Texas roster to Stillwater, and Mestamaker's awesome. right? The running back they got's really good too. They have a great wide receiver that I love that I'm going to talk about a little bit more when we talk about some top wide receivers this season. But like Oklahoma State, I think is going to be interesting, and they're going to be fun. I feel
Yes.
like.
And it was so lame when like the end of the Gundy era where OK State wasn't even fun anymore, you know? Like
Yeah, that was sad.
the only fun thing about them last year was like they were the ones that I believe started the tarps off movement. Like
Did
when
they?
your team's getting absolutely smoked, and it's like, well, it's 3 in the afternoon, like might as well just get shirtless.
Yeah,
But
get that
yeah,
suntan going.
I just feel like the this happens occasionally from time to time in college football to varying degrees of success, but just kind of bringing an entire coaching brain trust over from a different program, especially one that I think stylistically fits with OK State the way that, like, they basically have North Texas's, brain trust from last year. Mestamaker is super promising, of course. Fascinating story for him. Being a guy that, like, I don't think even started in high school type of thing. And then Caleb Hawkins is a absolute monster in that backfield and in the receiving core. So you know that this offense is going to be electric. So they will. I'm not saying that OK State is going to be good, but they will be fun. And I think that as just sort of national enjoyers of college football, we love seeing OK State at least be fun. I think that's going to give us a little something to include in our quad boxes every Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely, I love like Okie State is that perfect like 3:30 ABC B game, right? Where like you got like the big time SEC game going on, or the big time Big Ten or Notre Dame or whatever going on, but then you like throw on right on that other screen, like you just got a wild shootout, if you will, with the Cowboys, the Pokes out there in Stillwater, and I think we're going to get that this season, so I'm looking forward to that too. And as we talk about shootouts, and to be able to do that, you need some big time pass catchers, right? So let's kind of start doing some rankings here and really get the juices flowing here. We've done so much with quarterbacks in the past and head coaches and all that kind of stuff, but we really haven't like dove into this wide receiver class and what we got coming up here in 2026. So you can take this and run with it however you want to do your rankings, John. But give me your top 5 wide receivers going into 2026.
All right, so my top 5 receivers in college football going into this year, obviously it's Jeremiah Smith, number 1. Next up, I got Malachi Toney. Cam Coleman is number 3 for me. Then you can get a little bit more open-ended. I have KJ Duff of Rutgers as my number 4, and Nick Marsh now at Indiana as my guy at number 5. I think Smith, it's hard to argue, but Toney. Why I put Toney ahead of Coleman is because I think that he is more so going to be the engine of the Miami offense, whereas with Coleman, he's going to be an elevator for that Texas passing game. But I think that it's still, an offense where there's going to be they're going to spread the ball around a little bit more. So it's not going to be like the stats. I don't think are going to be quite as loud for Coleman. I think as a prospect, he's probably a little bit better, and obviously will be draft eligible this coming year. But Toney, I think in terms of like the stats for this year, what was the tiebreaker? Duff, massive guy who just like absolutely rocked out last year. Ian Strong, who was another very good receiver for Rutgers, is gone. He's at Cal now, which I think is a good fit for him. But I really think that Duff is just like fascinating. It's almost like Marcus Colston or something. He's like 6'6", 240, but can play the receiver position extremely well. He gives you reason to, yeah. So it's sort of like what we were saying about OK State, and like Rutgers has really not been fun to watch in our lifetimes. They might, there some of those Big Ten games that you used to, be able to safely write off because Rutgers is on the other side. I think the Duff will give you reason to pay attention there as well. And then Nick Marsh, I think, is just a stud. I think that, we're going to see him in more of a national spotlight because he's been kind of working down in the mines of East Lansing from the last 2 years, where I could tell you or I could count on like one hand the amount of minutes I've watched of Michigan State the last couple of years. It was a tough watch for Sparty. So Marsh getting unleashed here for a much more nationally recognizable program now, which is crazy to say with Indiana. he's going to be like he is like a supercharged Elijah Surratt or something in my mind. And I think that is pretty exciting. I think that Hoover's a solid addition for them as well. So, him and Charlie Becker, that's a sick 1-2. It was kind of hard to choose between them. But
I was
think
just going to ask, you're going Marsh over Becker?
I am, because I just need to see a little bit more from Becker. Becker, towards the end of last season, was like, the Mr. Big Play in college football. It was unbelievable the way that he finished the season. Can he sustain that? I think we have reason to believe that he could, but I think Marsh has a larger body of work. That's why I put him in there as my number 5.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So with me, my top 5 wide receivers heading in to 2026, I got the same top 3 as you do. A little bit of a different order. Jeremiah Smith, number 1. Cam Coleman, I'm going 2. Malachi Toney, 3. Then I'm going Deuce Robinson, number 4 at Florida State as my in my top 5. And then finally, I kind of hinted at this when we were talking about Oklahoma State. I'm going to go Wyatt Young. I think he's going to have a monster year for the Cowboys as he transfers over from North Texas. But yeah, Jeremiah Smith, right? Freak, alien, generational, however you want to describe it. He is the best player in college football. I don't think you're going to get much of an argument really from anybody on that front. He's just an absolute stud. Cam Coleman, I'm putting him at number 2 really because I can't wait to see what this guy's going to do with Arch Manning throwing him the football. Cam Coleman, in his 2 years at Auburn, had 5 different quarterbacks throwing him passes. Now he's got Arch Manning throwing him the ball. He's got Ryan Wingo on the other side. You got those monster studs in the backfield too, right? Defenses aren't going to, where are they going to focus when it comes to that Texas offense? So I'm really excited to see when Cam Coleman, what he's going to do down there in Austin. Malachi Toney, as you were kind of hinting at, John, right? He's going to do everything for Miami. He is a Swiss Army knife, can do a little bit of everything. And I was just thinking, right? Miami, South Florida, they got Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide with Pitbull. Well, they got Mr. Everything in Malachi Toney too. This kid is just an absolute stud. And he's only 18 years old. He's a sophomore. Can't wait to see what he's going to turn into. His career is going to be very interesting to follow. Deuce Robinson in Tallahassee, right? He had a really good second half of the season for the Noles last year. Go look at his game log and what he did down the stretch there. He is a freak physically, 6'6", 230. 12 catches of 30 or more yards a year ago. That was tied for the number 1 in the Power 4. Now, he's got Ashton Daniels throwing him the ball this year, which is going to be interesting. But Deuce Robinson is Florida State's offense.
Yes.
It's really going to Mike Norvell literally I think is going to have to hitch his wagon to Deuce Robinson, and that is going to be his meal ticket. If Florida State can somehow come up with the money to get rid of Norvell, which they might not be able to, but Deuce Robinson needs to do everything for Florida State, and they're just going to try to do tunnel vision feed him the football. So I just think his stats are going to be incredible. And then finally, I'm going Wyatt Young at number 5. Transfers in from North Texas to Oklahoma State. Already knows the offense. Has a great rapport with the quarterback and Mestamaker. This dude can fly. He was clocked at 22 miles per hour. He is fast, guys. And then he went last year at North Texas, 70 catches, over 1,200 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Will that transfer to the Power 4 level? Remains to be seen. But it is the Big 12 after all. Can see things get nuts. And as we were kind of talking about, we kind of expect Oklahoma State to be in a lot of shootouts this year. And I think Wyatt Young's going to be a big reason for that.
Yeah, that's a great list too. I love how we both had big monster freakazoids as our number 4 receivers between Deuce and KJ Duff. Yeah, Deuce is a lot of fun to watch. He's something else. And then, Wyatt Young, if things can look even 85% as good as they did at North Texas, then all of a sudden we're talking about one of the best receivers in the Big 12 and a guy who's firmly on draft radars once that time comes. But yeah, Wyatt Young, a lot of fun. And if you're in the fantasy streets at all, he's someone that goes in the 3rd round of these drafts. People are very much in on Wyatt Young this year.
Yeah, I can see why. After just watching some clips and doing some research, he jumps off the screen. One guy, so there's 2 more guys that I want to talk about here. One of them that neither one of us had on our list, but he was my 6th guy because I wanted to put him on there, but I just couldn't because he disappeared last year, and that's Mario Craver. When he was on, he was on. And he is awesome to watch, and he can do a little bit of everything. But there was just not enough consistency last year with him for me to put him on my top 5, even though I think he's really, really good.
So, yeah, Craver, he's not a guy that you can like completely build your offense around because he's so like kind of speed dependent. Like you want to use him down the field. Like he's almost like how many more targets can you give Alec Pierce or something in Indianapolis? Like you gotta just you gotta send him down the field, and he's probably coming down with it, probably getting open, that type of thing. But like you can't have it be something that you're allocating like 100 targets to. So it's gonna be interesting to see how A&M backfills the loss of Casey Concepcion, who was like just that Mr. Everything for the first 15 yards of a play. When you mentioned Mario Craver and you talked about the disappearing act, I was like, are you misspeaking? Are you actually talking about Ryan Coleman Williams?
That was where I was going next, right? What's going on there? He's not on either one of our lists. But like when you go back to that recruiting class, right? We both have Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman here. Williams, or now Coleman Williams, was that third guy that we were all talking about a couple of years ago, right? Where it was like, oh, we have this wide receiver class going in for the 2027 draft, like it's going to be an all-timer with these three kids. But Coleman Williams now, he's not only he's added a name and like dropped the number off his jersey. I think he's changed his jersey number 2, and drop is a key word as well because that has been a big problem with him, the drops, but. Can Kalen DeBoer get him back to what he was like that first month when he was on a couple of years ago in 2024 when he was just like when it was like this kid can like literally can fly. That's what he did in that Georgia game.
Yeah, it's like oh great, Alabama just like has another guy like this. It's unbelievable, but this time last year, I think it was like an open debate. Are you a Jeremiah Smith guy or are you a Ryan Williams guy? Now it's like it's not even a question anymore. And Williams didn't even make our lists. And Ryan Coleman Williams, he to me is like the college football version of Brian Thomas, where like his Thomas's rookie year and Coleman Williams' freshman year, it's like this guy is unbelievable. He's going to like change the game. He's insane. And then last year drops off, and it feels like it's not for. Or it feels like it's almost mental. It's like what is going on up here as to why you're not performing the way that you should be. In Coleman Williams' case, in his last 7 games, he didn't eclipse, I don't think even 50, maybe 60 yards. Yeah, 60 yards in his last 7 games. And he had one more catch last year than he did as a freshman and 200 fewer yards and 4 fewer touchdowns. Like that big play kill shot type of thing that Williams was just so like established and known for his freshman season. Where was that guy? Like it just was it a function of the offense? I don't buy that. The Alabama offense, the passing game at least, was better last year than it was in Coleman Williams' freshman year. So I don't understand it. It's an open question. I don't think that a guy that did what he did as a freshman is a bum. Like I think that like you have to be a certain level of extremely good to be able to do that. But can he find that guy again? I'm very curious to see because I think that's going to have a big say in how this Alabama offense looks this year.
Yeah, I mean the talent's there, but like he might not even be the best wide receiver on his team anymore. Like Latsier Brooks had a great year last year, and I think he's poised to have another good season this year. But yeah, Alabama's going to need Coleman Williams to figure it out and get back to that level as they try to break in a new quarterback, whether it's Russell or Mack there in Tuscaloosa. But definitely remains to be seen there when it comes to that offense.
He's one of those like individual player storylines that's I mean it can really swing the way that this season looks for his team. If he is as good as he should be at this point in his career, based on what we saw as a freshman, then Alabama is back to being pretty scary on offense. But if not, then they're just going to have another kind of frustrating season again that ends way short of their expectations.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so a couple other things, guys, before we wrap things up. We're still a little over a month out, I believe, before we get like that first AP poll. We'll get the coaches poll beforehand. But John, like, what do you think the AP is going to do? Give me your top 5 teams heading into 2026.
I think the AP will stick to Ohio State as the number 1 team. I think that makes sense. I think you've just got talent at every level. You've got championship pedigree. from of a recent vintage. I think that will be like the thing that keeps Ohio State there on top at number one. I think Texas will be number two, though. I don't see them being ranked much lower than that. I think Oregon will be right there. I mean, we have had long discussions about what's holding them back in these big games and everything like that. But coming into the year, like Oregon is loaded once again. Having Dante Moore back is one of the biggest wins for any program in college football this offseason. So him being back, you've got really exciting receivers, Decorian Moore. You've got one of the best tight ends to backfill from Kenyon Sadiq and Jalen Johnson. Uh, Crazy stable of running backs, great defense. Like Oregon, I think it should be no lower than three, in my opinion. Then I got Notre Dame and Miami rounding out my top five.
Interesting. No Georgia.
No Georgia.
In the top five for you. And then both of us. How dare we leave out the defending national champs from the top five too. So here comes my top five, as I just hinted there. I'm going to go Texas at one. I think the hype is going to definitely get into the writers as well this year with everything that Texas brought in and brought back and all that kind of stuff. So Longhorns at one. I'm going Notre Dame at two. I think they'll be ranked second going into the season. I got Oregon at number three as well. Everything they bring back, Dante Moore, huge, like just returning piece there for them. I got Georgia at number four. I believe that a lot of people are going to be very high on this Georgia team, and rightfully so, going into the season. And then I'm going Ohio State at five as well, with Say and Smith and those guys coming back as well. And then I got Indiana at six, basically going into the season, where I'm just like, I'm not as confident with Josh Hoover. Like there's a lot of turnovers there. And like Sig has literally talked about having to beat that out of him. So like I'm a little interested to see. And also those five teams I have ahead of Indiana all return their quarterback, and I think that's going to go a long way, at least with the AP and the writers, when it comes to like the preseason rankings. So that's why I feel that way, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously Indiana, like you can't doubt anything that like they can compete from any starting point. It feels like as far as like replacing their quarterback, replace a bunch of guys on defense, blah blah blah. Like you feel confident they're going to figure it out, but like Hoover might be that first slight misstep for Sig here. So they're going to have to run some cover for him. I think that they do have a backfield that can kind of like make that happen. Like just be a little bit more ground heavy. Turbo Richard is a beast. So and they've got some other pieces in that backfield as well. So it's gonna be good, but you feel like there's not gonna be a huge drop off as far as the receiving talent either. But just Hoover being I can't either put IU in my top five to preseason if Josh Hoover's the quarterback.
Yeah, so if you want to take that as disrespect, Hoosier fans, take it as disrespect. Good. I still think you're going to be very good this season. I just don't have you in the top five going into my preseason rankings, but if that matters to you whatsoever. So, all right, one other thing here as we start to wrap up the show for this week and kind of just start to look at the early schedule. You mentioned some of the big games, right, in the month of September, whether it's Texas and Ohio State or Ole Miss and LSU going on as well. But how about some under the radar games that in that first few week stretch that could just have huge ramifications down the road, John? And I'm looking right at week 0. We have an awesome week 0 game. And it's Memphis at UNLV. These are two teams that are when it comes to the G5 or G6 now, because we're back. Pac-12 is back. When it comes to the odds to make the playoffs, everyone seems to be kind of shooing in Boise as they normally do this time of year, right? Where Boise's the odds-on favorite. Then that next tier, though, Memphis and UNLV are both right there, and they're going at it. Week 0 in Las Vegas. This is an awesome way to start off college football season. I think this is a great game.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you circled that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to I think it's technically week 1. Old walk down memory lane, an old Pac-12 after dark. We get a little UCLA Cal. I think in week 1 to just sort of end our Saturday night, that first weekend or second weekend technically, that's going to be awesome. And then we can sleep it off for a few hours, and then we get football all day on Sunday as well with the quartet or whatever it is of nice college football games on that Sunday. So looking forward to having a little bit of Pac-12 after dark. That in my 20s. Your boy just lived on the Pac-12 after dark when they're out at the bars. is best.
How could you not? How could you not? It's great. And then let me throw a couple more at you here. Week 2, start to look at that slate. How about Arizona State at Texas A&M? That's going to be fun. I feel like on week 2, both schools. Texas A&M's right, trying to continue what they did last year, what they built last year. What are we going to see from Marcel Reed and Mike Elko's team? And then Kenny Dillingham, right? He chooses to stay at ASU. You got a big matchup there in week 2, and if like the Sun Devils pull that off, that upset in College Station, that's going to go a long way for them. And then one other one I think is going to be really interesting, and this is right in your neck of the woods at Bobby Dodd. Tennessee at Georgia Tech, week 2. Like, sneaky fun. That's good. That's like one of the, I feel like, a really important game for both schools there on that week 2 schedule.
Yeah, it's like a prove it again game for Georgia Tech. You know, obviously like they were so good last year, like really in the ACC championship running for most of the season. Can they do it again? Can they prove it, especially without Haynes King, especially early in the season against an SEC opponent in Tennessee? It's like, if you are anywhere close to what you say you are, you have to win that game. You cannot afford to lose that game. It's going to be on the road at Bobby Dodd, weird stadium, very close, intimate seats and everything. So I mean that's going to be, you know, no walk in the park there for Tennessee when they come to North Avenue.
I'm just going to say, though, that might be a nice little fill up the Yeti and take a stroll over there for you that day. That might be a fun
because Georgia doesn't play anybody for a while. I think we get like Western Kentucky that weekend or something.
But
so
I know how much you love to just dump and watch Tennessee burn. So like that might be your just go over there. Just that's good. That's good stuff. Especially like if like it starts swinging one way, like if Georgia Tech starts to kind of like bully and clamp down a little bit, like I feel like you might find yourself over there at some point on
just
that Saturday.
Start barking and give away my cover. Yeah.
That's good. Yep. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. We'll be back here in the coming days and weeks as we start to really dive into these conference previews. But, John, it's good to be back. Football is coming like 48 days away. We are at week 0. So really looking forward to this season and continuing to do this.
Yes, great stuff, man. Yeah, looking forward to the rest of our off-season program here. We're going to be hitting the fall camp hard. We got a lot of good stuff coming. Good to get this rep in, though, here in July.
All right, guys, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends. College Football Tailgate, we are back, and we will talk to you in the coming days.